Celebrities with Twitter accounts, and I know this because I have one, get bombarded with sometimes hundreds of insults a day. So over the last few months, we've been asking some of our celebrity guests to sit down and read the mean things people tweet about them.
Selena Gomez is on the radio right now. Is there a volume lower than mute?
Dr. Phil, why don't you shut the up, you bald-headed, big-mouth hillbilly?
I've never seen the fuss with Russell Brand. He's a hairy, non-funny.
Kelly Ripa is kind of amazing when you think about how hard it must be to balance that huge head on a tiny body.
If you aren't familiar, those are from a segment that late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel does called Celebrity Mean Tweets. Celebrities encounter harsh criticism often, of course, and obviously they must develop a thick skin to be able to tolerate such frequent cruelty. Taking nothing personally is something a lot of us aspire to do, and it's a concept that directly stems from the teachings of Don Miguel Ruiz in his best-selling book, The Four Agreements, if you're familiar with that. In that book, Ruiz explores how freeing ourselves from the trap of personalizing the actions and words of others can lead to a more peaceful and fulfilling life. So, what does it mean to take nothing personally? Taking nothing personally means freeing ourselves from the need to internalize the opinions, judgments, and actions of others. It's about realizing that how people perceive us is a reflection of their beliefs, their experiences and filters, rather than an absolute truth about who we are. It's about recognizing that we're not responsible for other people's happiness or their reactions. So how can we begin to cultivate this mindset in our daily lives? It starts with self-awareness. We must first become aware of our own triggers and patterns of taking things personally. By observing our reactions and emotions, we can catch ourselves in the act of personalizing someone else's behavior. From there, we can pause. Pausing is important. We're going to talk about it a little later, but we can pause, take a deep breath, and remind ourselves that their actions are not about us. It's hard to internalize this if you grow up a kind of defensive person, but this analysis that their actions are not about us is really true and worth taking some time and effort to absorb. Take nothing personally. That's the focus of this Zen slider. A shorter Zen Sammich, but just as mentally nutritional as the full version. Take nothing personally.
You're listening to Zen Sammich, a podcast for the independent mind and anyone who embraces life despite its absurdities. Join former attorney and professor-turned-Japanese papermaker Mark Reed each week as he talks with creative, inspiring, and influential people, or as he shares his own research to help make your world a little better today than it was yesterday.
So, here are 3 practical tips on how to detach from taking things personally. Number 1, cultivate self-love and self-acceptance. When we have a strong sense of self-worth, the opinions of others hold far less power over us. And you might be thinking, yeah, Mark, that sounds great, but I don't have a strong sense of self-worth. Well, you know what I'm going to say. Practice, baby, practice. Practice self-care. Use affirmations. Look in the mirror and say, I believe in you. And maybe most importantly, surround yourself with positive influences. Believe it or not, you can practice confidence. Imagine what it would look like and feel like if you were 100% confident all the time. Not arrogant, confident, self-assured. Genuinely practice being that version. Genuinely practice being that vision every day, and you will get closer and closer and closer to it. Okay, step 2, practice empathy and compassion. Remember that everyone is going through their own unique journey. Instead of reacting defensively, try to understand where others are coming from. This shift in perspective can create a space for empathy and compassion to arise. When we encounter someone who disagrees with us, criticizes us, or behaves in a way that we find challenging, it's easy to become defensive and take their words or actions personally. However, by consciously shifting our perspective, we can begin to see beyond the surface level interactions and understand that there is often more to the story than meets the eye. Instead of immediately reacting defensively or taking things personally, we can choose to pause. We can pause and make an effort to understand where the other person is coming from. When we take time to truly understand others, we develop a deeper appreciation for their humanity and the challenges that they may be facing. We recognize that their words or actions are often a reflection of their own inner struggles, insecurities, or past experiences. Look, I have a family member. For years, she has disapproved of choices I've made and has said some rather nasty things about me. When I found out, did it hurt? Of course, I am a human being. But when I really considered her own life, which is a great, wonderful life, I'm not here to say anything negative about that, but it is different from my path, and she certainly has a different set of values. And when I thought about her criticisms and disapproval of choices I've made, when I thought about them from her perspective, I actually kind of get it. And I harbor no ill will or resentment towards her, no judgment. But in the end, it is my life to live, so I don't take her criticisms personally. Honestly, it's none of my business what she thinks of me. Her head is hers to deal with. And let's be clear, I'm not talking about things that could actually hurt your business or your reputation in a community or with your family, like defamation or libel. Outright attacks or lies should be dealt with accordingly. But if someone simply has a poor opinion of you, it really does have more to do with who that person is, not you. Think about all the people who do like you. In other words, if someone has a negative perception of you, for whatever reason, it's not objective truth. It's important to realize that. Okay, third, and this is my favorite practical tip. Shift your focus inward. Rather than seeking validation externally, turn your attention inward. Explore your passions, your values, your purpose. When we are grounded in our own truth, external judgments completely lose their significance. Now, this relates quite a bit to tip number 1, practice self-assurance, but it goes a bit further into the realm of intentional thinking. When you're faced with what I'll call brick wall criticism, in other words, there's nothing you can do to change that person's mind or perspective on a matter or about you. Hey, leave that hobby to them. Let that be their time occupier. You've got better things to do. Dive into what you care about, what you love. If someone is mean to you, go be nice to someone else. Use your time, the time that you have in this life, for good, and don't spend any of it, if possible, on taking things personally. One final caveat to add here to this examination of take nothing personally. I'm not saying go ahead and that it gives you carte blanche to just be an asshole. When you've done something wrong, go apologize, make amends. But what I am saying is that not everybody is going to like you, and that's okay. With the exception of maybe just a few folks that have ever existed, like Mr. Rogers, Steve Irwin, or the painter Bob Ross, pretty much no one on the planet is universally liked. So when you mess up, fix it. But if someone just has a sour opinion of you, well, that's theirs to fix. That's their issue. Take nothing personally. Look, the key is to nurture your resilience, your inner strength. One of the biggest challenges is breaking the habit of seeking validation from others. Stop that. We often fall into this trap of needing approval to feel worthy or lovable. Now, for some, there might be a psychological reason for that, deeper issues, and if so, perhaps that should be explored further with a professional. But for a lot of us, for maybe most of us, this is simply an outdated evolutionary purpose. That is, probably in cave person days, we needed approval to belong to a group because we're better protected in a group. We needed it for survival. So it takes time and practice to shift this mindset. But as I stated earlier, you can practice self-compassion. You can practice empathy. You can practice intentional thinking. You can change your mindset to take nothing personally. Another challenge is managing our ego. Our ego loves to take things personally, and sometimes it feeds on drama and conflict. By becoming aware of our ego's influence, we can detach and choose a different response. Instead of reacting impulsively, we can choose to respond with grace and understanding. Pause. There's that word again. The internal pause button is your friend, my friend. Avoid snap reactions. Pause and choose your responses. It's a continuous practice of observing our ego's patterns and consciously choosing a different path. When we release the need for external validation and stop internalizing the opinions of others, you really will experience a newfound sense of freedom and inner peace. My advice is to approach the practice of taking nothing personally with patience and self-compassion. It's not about suppressing our emotions or denying our humanity. Let me say that once again. It's not about suppressing your emotions. But it is about recognizing that we have the power to choose our responses and interpretations of others' words and actions. That's it, folks. Remember that taking nothing personally is a lifelong journey. There's no end goal here. You're just always going to do it. Easier said than done, I know. But enjoy the journey. Enjoy the practice. So here's your 1, 2, 3 again. 1, cultivate self-acceptance. 2, practice empathy and compassion. Yes, even towards your critics. And 3, shift your focus toward your passions and values. Let other people spend their mental energy on whatever they want. You're going to put yours into something good, something that gives back to the world, into something that gives a positive influence on the world. I hope you found some inspiration taking nothing personally. If you did, chuck us a buck or two. We got bills to pay, and your contribution really does help. You can either donate through Red Circle, wherever you're listening to this, or go to zensammich.com and find out 2 different ways to support the show. Be aware if you donate through Red Circle, I won't know who you are. It's anonymous through that particular avenue, so I can't give you a shout out on the show, which is fine. If that's the way you prefer it. Or if you go to zensammich.com, the 2 ways to help the show that way is through Patreon or PayPal. I can find out who you are then and give you a shout out on the show, and we'll do so. So stay present, stay mindful, take nothing personally, and breathe. Don't forget to breathe.